even after you spent 5 years fighting this case.
Yeah.
Did you want to go back after them after that, or
So, what do you mean, the state?
like the company that fired you for wrongful termination?
Well, I'm in South Carolina. It's a right to work state, so it's very difficult.
Mm.
I talked to a few lawyers, and it's a company called Nucor Steel. They got deep pockets, and most of them told me this that it would be a hard case to
Oh,
fight
okay.
and try to win to. Because the right to work, they can really fire you because you're wearing a black shirt if they want, and there's not really much you can do about it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I called and talked to the people. I was like, look, this case got dropped. And he's like, well, you can reapply. And I'm like, what about, seniority? I was there 15 years. He's like, yeah, I'll have to start over. And I was like, you know what?
I'm going to podcasting.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I still do work in that field. I work for a company that actually builds submarines now for the Navy. But the interesting part is, like, I didn't even listen to podcasts. I may be a Rogan every now and then.
Yeah.
And then once this happened, I got sucked into the rabbit hole of, wrongful conviction podcast, because I'm now in a situation where I know I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm staring in prison time. So I'm looking and I'm like, do innocent people really go to prison? Yes, they do. A lot more than people think. I started looking at like the Central Park 5 and, the Bronx 6 and all these cases. And that really kind of sucked me into the podcasting world.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started listening to like other mob podcasts and, wrestling podcasts and different things. And then when COVID hit, keep in mind on this time, I'm on house arrest. I can't go anywhere but to work, church, lawyers, and doctor's visits, and that's it.
Mm.
So I'm very bored. And around that time, the whole world was on house arrest because nobody could leave. So I had this idea to start a podcast. And originally, I wasn't going to interview anybody. I was just going to talk about different things. And then it kind of got rolling. I got some legs up under it, and I started doing in-person interviews. And when I started doing that, that's when I really noticed like how many people really are, or have been wrongfully convicted.
Mm.
And then I talked with everybody. You and I have interviewed a lot of the same people,
Yeah.
like John Sarasani, Matt Cox, who's a great friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Matt was one of the best, one of the first people that I ever told my story on once it got cleared. Because when these people met me, they had no idea I was going through this. I never talked about it because it was still pending.
Mm.
And, they were even giving me access to go to New York and stay for like weeks at a time. And so this is the weirdest case I'd ever seen. I got the lowest bond possible. I was on house arrest, but I didn't have a monitor on.
Mm.
I never got an ankle monitor.